Welcome. Thank you all for being here once again. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, please let me know. Today, I want to talk at some point. Obviously, the first 60 minutes was hang out and chat about whatever. But the first 60 minutes or so, sorry, after the first 60 minutes, I was planning to discuss a very important work as it relates to the history of stone masonry in particular. Now, the Latin, or excuse me, the Spanish title of the book is Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra. English translation, Book of Stone Cutting Designs. It is a manuscript or a treatise regarding stone masonry, stonework, what that is, what that was, particularly in the Spanish Renaissance, and the history of stonework and stone cutting at that time. So, I want to discuss that. It is technically not part of the old charges. However, it is incredibly valuable and incredibly useful for us as Freemasons to think about and consider. I'm going to talk about why that is. It's not technically one of the old charges. I have discussed the old charges in the past, particularly the Regius poem and the Cook manuscript, as well as the Anderson constitutions. But I think it's important we also remember that Freemasonry, it traces its origins to stonemasonry. And as such, we have a responsibility to think about, care about, and discuss our stone Masonic roots, how they relate to Freemasonry, the bridge between operative and speculative Freemasonry, and the most important works as it relates to stonemasonry. And there's no question, Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, otherwise known as Book of Stone Cutting Designs. You could also translate it as, trying to think of the other way you could possibly translate it. Most people, though, translate it as Book of Stone Cutting Designs, or in some cases, they translate it as Book of Stone Cutting, simply. Hello, airline pilot from Switzerland. Good to see you. I don't know today's Hamburger Day, but I like Hamburger Day. Are you supposed to be impressed with what? That's true, Freddy Krueger. There's not a lot of people on the stream at the moment, but I do want to at least get the general idea of what I want to talk about out. And that when people do jump on, they hear me talking. It's not just me looking at the camera type of thing. So, um, but I hope that you are doing well. What are you supposed to be impressed with? Another translation is Book of Blueprints for Stone Cutting, is another translation you could use. If you say you're supposed to be impressed by Freemasonry, I would say you don't have to be, but it does have a pretty impressive history. And like everything else, it goes up, it goes down. The views, which is perfectly fine. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Is today actually Hamburger Day? If it is, I have no idea. But I do like hamburgers. So, Freddy Krueger, did I perhaps manage to get you to reconsider your views on Freemasonry or stonemasonry or any views you had about anything? Hello, Jar. I'm going to call you Jar. How's it going? Well, stonemason is a profession, airline pilot. It's also known as operative Freemasonry. It's a profession. It's a professional endeavor. It's a skilled trade. Freemasonry is the social club. In the same way you had gardeners, the profession, and free gardeners. Or in the same way you have veterans and soldiers and the Legion. I'm glad you're fine, Jar. I hope you'll hit like and subscribe. I think you're new to the stream. Any thoughts on Freemasonry? Positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. And for the time being, I'm just going to wait to see who jumps on to say hello. As always, any thoughts? Do I consider being a veteran in, I mean, I would call myself a veteran in Freemasonry. Obviously, I'm not a veteran in the sense of having served in any wars. Um, but if you mean veteran, you mean experienced, then yeah, I've been a Mason for just about 20 years. So I would consider myself very much a veteran of Freemasonry, not just because I've been a Mason for 20 years, but because I've been active for 20 years, right? That is the biggest thing you need to keep in mind. I think one of the mistakes we very often make, you can be a Mason for 20 years and attend one meeting a year. You're not a veteran. By the same token, you can be a Freemason for 5 years, attend every single lodge meeting, as well as visit weekly other lodges. You're a veteran. You're more of the veteran at 5 years in than 20 years in. Um, OJ, why do you say I'm not a Mason? I see you as an all-seeing eye. Well, Eliza, bring better ham, I guess. I see you as an all-seeing eye. The all-seeing eye, otherwise known as the Eye of Providence, is an incredibly important symbol within Freemasonry, but also outside of Freemasonry. I mean, it was called the Eye of Ra, the Eye of Providence, the all-seeing eye. It's been an important symbol in a variety of cultures for millennia. I don't attend every event, but I attend the vast majority of events. I mean, well over 90% easily of local events. Douglas, I appreciate that. Some people do, some people do not. It just depends on, I guess, what they think of me, which is perfectly fine. But I appreciate you being here. Whoa, with the caps, calm down, OJ. I hate that call and response stuff. I'm a worshipful master of Border Cities Lodge number 554. I travel to the east, as all Freemasons should be traveling, from the west to the east. Um, I'm not going to do that because my singing is terrible. Player 001 frontman. So I don't want to ruin anybody's day by singing. Yeah, but the Eye of Providence was also called the Eye of Ra in many circumstances. Oh, yeah, airline pilot. I've been incredibly lucky and incredibly blessed to do so. I've attended lodges in Colombia, in Brazil, in South Africa, in England, Scotland, and the Philippines. And I've been grateful to attend all of them. Hello, Tim. Hello, the cursed Santa. How's it going? Please hit like and subscribe. Even if you are cursed, I would still be much obliged. And I hope that you are doing well. Welcome back, Tim. I do not have legs. I was born missing them. You need to calm down a bit, OJ Slice. A lot of people talk about Freemasonry on YouTube, not just me. Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast, Brother Fluff, Masonic Roundtable, First Three Knocks. It's growing. And I think that's a good thing, by the way. To see more people talking about Freemasonry on YouTube is actually a really good thing, because we need to be talking more about it. We need to increase its relevance in our communities. And failing to do so, I think, is really causing us a lot of harm. So, Masons believe in Santa. In fact, Santa Claus is a Freemason, according to some traditions. I've seen a video. Thank you, Tim. By all means, leave a comment on that video. I've done a few of those. We as Freemasons should care about our health, should care about our well-being, and should encourage others to care about it as well. You cannot contribute well to your Masonic Lodge if you are not keeping yourself physically in shape. So, Masons are not demonic, but, for the record, subscribing to this channel doesn't make you a Freemason. It makes you a subscriber to this channel. Having said that, Freemasonry is not demonic, nor does it have anything to do with demons. Well, I appreciate that, OJ. But, I've done this channel for about 5 years, give or take. 90-day grind, well, I'll take it. Can you buy me? I do not know what that is, Brooks Lee. How's it going? Thank you for being here. So, Santa, you could be trolling. You might not be. I don't know. Why do you, so why do you think we sacrifice goats and steal from the poor? In fact, we give to the poor. Freemasons engage in a lot of charitable activities around the world. I think specifically of the Masonic Charity Foundation out of England, but there's a million other ones as well. So, Brooks, I cannot. You're on your own. I'm asking people to give me super chats, not for me to buy them something. But as always, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, let me know. Like I said, after we're done this, I'm going to be talking about the a very important work from the 16th century, published in 1646, Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, otherwise known as Book of Stone Cutting Designs, or Book of Blueprints of Stone Cutting Designs. So you saw posts and you assume that it's true. Got to be careful, Curse Santa. If you don't have the experience and the knowledge, all social media does is confuse you and not give you the proper context. What are the quotes of Albert Pike that you saw, and why is Albert Pike relevant? Why does he matter? Is the better question. Morning X Riz Caldwell. Thank you for being here. Well, that's an interesting question, airline pilot. Did he? What book did he write? And did he write books about Freemasonry, or did he write books about his own personal philosophy on Freemasonry? I would say the most important thing we can do to help everybody is increase social engagement and strengthen the social safety net. I'm doing well, X Riz. How are you doing? As always, thank you for being here. I hope you are doing well. Again, we're just going to hang out for a bit. The first, 60 minutes, we just chat about whatever, no specific talking points. Then we switch it up and we talk about what I would say are some really cool things, including and not limited to a very important treatise and book on stonemasonry. I hope it's not me that's lagging. Let me know if anybody else is seeing it. Oh, the cursed Santa with that comment. Epstein was not a Freemason. So, you're just looking up a bunch of nonsense on social media. You don't understand the context of it. And I suspect that believing in that nonsense gives you a sense of peace and comfort because you're probably living a very bad life. Or you're just trolling, which could be as well. Airline pilot. That's a good question, but that's also a very long question. A very long answer, I should say, because so first, I know what you're saying, what you're trying to say, but you need to keep in mind there is no such thing as the Freemasonry Club. There are Freemasonry clubs. Freemasonry is decentralized. So, for example, Freemasonry in Ontario is under a different governing body and different governing structure than Freemasonry in England, then Freemasonry in Spain, then Freemasonry in Texas. They're different clubs with different governance structures and different governments. So you need to keep that in mind. Having said that, yes, Masonic clubs and groups have, in a variety of ways, supported and helped, everybody, including and not limited to poor people, in a variety of ways. So first, within the lodge itself, there is a social safety net capacity. So I've known 3 brothers who would have been homeless were it not for Masons stepping in and providing benevolence. Not only would they be homeless, but their families would have been on the street as well. Benevolence meaning providing them with assistance and funds to pay their rent, to pay their mortgage, whatever it might be. Now, that doesn't just help the lodge members, that also helps the entire community because it makes sure that That's one less person, one less family on the streets. That's one less family that needs to use shelter, beds, or social assistance, or et cetera, or food banks, thereby keeping those resources available for others who need it. So there's the immediate benefit to the Masonic brothers. And then on top of that, there is the benefit to everybody else as a whole. And that is something that I think is really, really cool. And then it helps everybody else as well, because again, every person who does not need to go onto social assistance, who does not need to use community resources, who does not need to, use what would be publicly funded services, is saving the taxpayer money and is saving resources that can go to others. Masons donate to food banks. In fact, Morton Grove Lodge in Chicago donates to the Northfield Township Pantry. They gave a giant donation. I was there for it. I thought it was so cool to see the amount of food and toiletries they gave. I know many Masonic lodges, mine has in the past, donated to food banks and local charities. They also fund a variety of other, charitable endeavors as well. So it just depends. But yeah, I mean, there are Masonic clubs around the world. I don't know about quote unquote slum communities, but I'm sure there are. I mean, Prince Hall Freemasonry, South American Freemasonry, AF and AM Freemasonry, it's all around the world. And you can find it in a variety of different communities. In poor communities, like in Alabama, in rural communities, which can be very poor, you very often see Masonic lodges, which again acted as not just a fraternal organization, but as a civic center. It's where they had vaccination clinics and food drives, fundraisers, things of that nature. So, hello, Gypsy Chloe. Cursed, I'm from Canada. I love Canada. I think Canada is the greatest country in the world. Having said that, I think we have the greatest neighbors in the world, in the States. So I'll keep that in mind. But if you're American, then you should love America. Gypsy, please hit like and subscribe. Welcome from Ireland. Thank you for being here. Resurrection, as everything a human, I don't think everything a human does is a lie. I think humans can lie. Namaste, I'm doing well. Thank you for being here. Gypsy, much obliged. So how is your day going? I hope you're doing well. I am planning something special for August 21st. I'm going to make the announcement very soon. And once I do, like I said, I'll be keeping you guys in the loop about it. So be prepared for that. It's likely going to be another 24-hour stream/content marathon, which I always love to do. And yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on some special guests I may have during that stream. It's been good, just working right now, Gypsy. So you got off work, I'm just starting work. But thank you for being here. As always, I hope you're doing well in Ireland. A lot of Freemasonry in Ireland. Oh, I like that movie, Dad. I like Stephen Hawking. I have his book somewhere. We as Freemasons should be lifelong learners, and that includes learning about and caring about science and the universe. 90-day, forgive you for what? What be I forgiving you for? I don't know what it means to enjoying the New Mexico heat, NM. I do not like the heat. Believe me, I would much rather it be winter all the time. A couple weeks ago, I did a Christmas in July movie marathon on my personal channel, which was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed it. But, it made me think of winter and made me think of cooler days, which I very much appreciated. So keep your schedule open for August 21st. Now, there are some things coming up that could change it, right? Obviously, if I have my kidney donation surgery, that may change things depending on when it is and if there is a recovery period. There could be a lot of different things, but I will keep people informed. But as of right now, we're assuming August 21st. Masons are not mean to homeless people. Many Masons help homeless people. What's up, Mayo and Oreos? Thank you for being here as always. It's crazy how many wildfires there are. Gypsy, my suspicion is, I don't know for sure, but my suspicion is that has a lot to do with with amongst other things, climate change. And I think it's going to get a lot worse. You're seeing it very bad in Europe right now, obviously. And before that, it was very bad in Canada. There was some in the US as well. A lot of people don't realize that. So I think we're all thinking about it right now, and we're all wishing everybody's safe and well, and as much as possible, nobody's homes are lost. But having said that, certainly and practically, um, if you get an evacuation notice, whatever it is, just get out. You can't replace your life. You can hopefully replace your stuff. Positive, welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm willing to assume. I'm willing to make assumptions on this. We got some hearts. Thank you for the hearts. Welcome, everybody. As always, like, subscribe, super chat, comment. I know, and it does suck. But again, I'd rather you lose your home than your life. That's for sure. Also, to everybody watching this, keep in mind, many times we as Freemasons are, helping people through these natural disasters. In Los Angeles a couple of years ago during the fires, in many cases, it was Masonic lodges that acted as relief areas, giving people a place to sleep or rest, as well as, in many cases, supporting people who were struggling, collecting donations, collecting money, collecting goods, collecting, food and water and items that both first responders and evacuees needed. I do not like eggnog. What is a Mason? A Mason, well, there's two definitions, right? There's either stonemason, which is a profession. It's an operative job. It's a job called operative, right? And then there is speculative Masons, which is a social club. So if you are a Mason, normally what you are referring to is a member of a social club or a social group called Freemasonry that has existed for over 300 years. Are you collecting donations for... I'm not collecting donations for anyone. I'm collecting donations to me because this is my job and I'm turning my passion for Freemasonry into profession. But I do know some Masonic lodges that I believe are collecting funds to assist, sometimes in Gaza, sometimes in Israel, sometimes in both. And I believe there are some Masonic aid workers, actually, like they're aid workers who happen to be Freemasons who are in Gaza at the moment. Yes, he is, Mayo and Oreos. I'm not going to... we're going to get rid of that one because YouTube won't like that term. It might get in trouble. Mr. Erosier, why do you think, quote unquote, Freemasons are, as you say, killing babies? You do need to calm down. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a timeout. Yeah, so Gypsy, it's funny. Most people, when they think of Masons, don't think about the stone kind. They think about the speculative or the club kind. So the fact that you've just heard of the stone Masonic kind, I mean, that makes me happy in some ways because I don't think our stone Masonic brothers get near enough love and near enough appreciation. So I'm happy that people are hearing about them because they are, they deserve more love and respect for, if no other reason, the skill they have and the things they're able to do. It is absolutely incredible. And it's actually a really good way to earn a living. I think, unfortunately, there was a time where we put so much emphasis on people becoming lawyers and doctors and office workers, all of which is wonderful and all of which is valuable. We forgot that you can make a really good living in the trades as a plumber, as an electrician, or as a stonemason. And in fact, in Canada, there's recently been some changes to the Red Seal program, which allows for um, a different. I got to double check on this. I think I might be keep in mind what I'm saying with a big grain of salt. But I believe that the Red Seal program for stonemasons and other professions has been changed to make it a more streamlined process to apply to get your Red Seal, which then allows you as a professional craftsman or journeyman to travel across the country and work in any province. Might that be Smokey the Clown? Welcome. Thank you for being here. Um, Hello, ID1 Kenobi. So Freemasons are not cultists. We do not eat human remains. None of it's been proven. You're just a person, the cursed Santa, who has a very bad life. And instead of looking inside at what's wrong with your life, you are externalizing that on Freemasonry. Um, Thank you, Namaste. LM Freemasons are not evil. We are a community, at least. I would say that. Mr. Rozier, I mean, many Freemasons are Christians, and many Freemasons would agree with you that Christ is king. But we also have Muslim Freemasons and Jewish Freemasons, Hindu, Sikh. Mr. Keeps says, wow. Hello, Mr. Keeps. What's the wow? The Winnipeg Blue Bombers had a Christmas in July and gave Calgary St. Peter's. There you go. They were giving them a gift. That's very nice of them. Um, 90 Day, welcome. Austin, that's a good point, Kurt. If you misspelled Nog, that concerns me. Austin, many Freemasons would agree with you. Um, I mean, I'm not a big fan of, I hate terms like Zionist and elite, especially elite, because that doesn't mean anything. Elite can mean anything you want it to mean. It's not well defined. So it tends, people hear that and put in, it's like Mad Libs, right? Some people hear elite and think rich people. Some people hear elite and think certain races or ethnicities. Some people hear elite and think like certain political groups. It's all bullshit. And it's not healthy and it's not helpful. Austin, I mean, I don't think YouTube's the best place to be proselytizing, I think is the correct word. Having said that, I'm not a Christian myself, but I know many Christian Freemasons. Thank you, JP. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just stating a fact. In my opinion, most of the people who are believing conspiracy nonsense about Freemasonry are usually struggling with mental health issues or just challenges in their life or struggles in their life. It could be financial, it could be familial. It could be substance use. They might appear on the surface that everything's going great, but they're having all sorts of struggles. It could be actual mental illness. And instead of looking in the mirror and dealing with the way they're feeling and the issues they're having, they create a boogeyman called Freemasonry and focus on that. You're basically equivalent to the Ashley Judd character from the movie Bug, B-U-G. If you never watched it, you should. Um, See, Jan, you're assuming wrong. I am not extremely rich. All right, Mr. Erosier, you are also basically Ashley Judd from the movie Bug, or maybe the Michael Shannon character. So I'm going to put you in a bit of a timeout. We're going to see if you can calm down a little bit. You probably can't, but we'll give you a chance to calm down and come back. I mean, I don't know what Jews are an example of other than human beings who are an excellent part of, the Masonic family, as are Muslims, as are Christians, etc., etc. Um, so not everyone who disagrees with me is mentally ill or a drug addict. That is true. If the disagreement is, for example, what's the better movie? The Godfather or It's a Wonderful Life, or what is the appropriate taxation rate, or anything like that, then that is true. If the disagreement is Freemasons eat babies, and I'm saying no, they don't, at that point, it's a mental illness, a drug addiction, or just, it doesn't have to be like a diagnosed mental illness. It can just be life is being very hard on the person and they're struggling, and whatever struggles they're having, they find it easier to not deal with those struggles by creating or by following conspiracy theories. It's a codependent relationship with conspiracy and with baloney. Um, well, the Kurds, I have no idea what if the Kurd Santa is Indian, is North American, South American, indigenous, European, black, white, Asian. The point is, conspiracy theories can provide comfort and solace to people of any different race, religion, creed, background. It just kind of is what it is, right? There's a reason why they're so popular. It's because they provide comfort to people who need it in their lives. Um, I mean, I remember once upon a time, I was ended up in a X space, and I was talking to somebody about Freemasonry, and they started crying, talking about, they were fighting against the Masons and blah blah blah, and I realized they needed to believe the conspiracy theories about Freemasonry because it gave them comfort, because they had messed up their own life so much. Um, and trying to fix that was going to be a nightmare. But they could go on YouTube and social media and just spew nonsense, and it gave them a sense of purpose and comfort. And this idea that so long as they're focusing on how bad the Freemasons are, they don't have to look in the mirror and see the ways they messed up their own life. And I think, if somebody says Freemasons eat babies, it's usually some version of that. It's a codependent relationship on conspiracy and nonsense, because it's easier to believe that than to believe that you're just leading a not great life, or to believe that sometimes life is bad, period, and there's sometimes no reason for it. Um, an X space, I've been in a couple X spaces, like formerly Twitter, right? Twitter spaces slash X spaces. Um, I hate conspiracy theories. I think it does nothing but hurt people, JP. Even when they're true because the conspiracy is so broadly defined that eventually it's bound to be true, right? They don't actually help solve problems or make things better. They just, you know, detract or they stop people from actually dealing with proper solutions by causing people to look up a bunch of nonsense or deal with pretend problems. Um, I have no idea what you are, the cursed Santa. Um, Google Chrome, welcome. In my experience, I would not describe Twitter slash X Spaces as woke AF. I mean, I suppose they can be. In my experience, it's not the case. In my experience, X Spaces are kind of a stew of misery and conspiracy and nonsense. Half of them, the earth is flat. The other half, diseases aren't real. The other half, the government is whatever. Aliens are stealing people. It just kind of is what it is. You get used to it. But I would not describe Twitter Spaces as woke AF. Um, Seth, same thing. I just think you're living a not good life, and I think that your way to deal with that is by looking up a bunch of conspiracy nonsense on social media. Is the cursed Santa? Am I his profile pic? No, for heaven's sakes! I don't know why people do that. It's such a weird. Whoops! It's such a weird thing to do. I'll never get it. Oh, for heaven's sakes! Maybe let's stop using me as profile pics. Google Chrome, you get used to it. I mean, again, he's just leading a not very good life. Same thing as Seth Sands. Same thing as a lot of these people, right? Um, just hello, how's it going? Thank you for being here. Please take a moment, hit like and subscribe. But I mean, this should remind us why it is, right, and the danger of having social media, and what it can do if you're not careful about it. Again, if you're struggling in life and you don't know why and you don't know how to fix it and you're feeling not great, even if on the outside everything seems to be going really well, but meanwhile, emotionally, psychologically, you're struggling with mental illness, with substance use, etc., etc., conspiracy theories can become a really excellent refuge for you and a really comforting refuge to you and for you. The problem is they end up hurting people, including the people who believe them. So, you know, for all of his talk, I don't think, for example, um, Alex Jones is leading a particularly good or happy life. Favorite music? Simple. So my favorite song of all time is Simple Man by Leonard Skinner. I think it's an incredible song. I always like to give an honorable mention to Prodigal by Blacktop Mojo because it's so good. And they do not get the love that they deserve. I also love to mention, amongst other things, and I think it's another band that doesn't get the love it deserves, Coffee at Midnight by Stained Atlantic, which is a great song as well. And then on top of that, I love the Eagles, I love Janis Joplin, I love Elton John. The old expression I always say is music is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. It depends. I love 80s hair metal. Like, I always really loved Poison, Rat, Cinderella. I think all of those are absolutely incredible. So I love those a lot. Um, I don't like the really heavy stuff. Probably Metallica is about as heavy as I like to go. I enjoy Nirvana as well and like the 80s grunge, which is a type of metal. Daniel, how's it going? I've never strangled a cat. I would never do that. I love cats. I love animals more than people, to be honest. If I had to choose, I think I'd populate the earth with way more animals and way less people because animals are a lot easier to get along with as a general rule. Even when they're trying to eat you, they're ultimately just acting, they're not trying to do it to harm you, they're just doing it for food. Humans seem to revel in a particular type of cruelty. Not a big fan of German metal, Mr. Dane. I mean, again, though, did he, like, what did he actually say, right? Kurz, like, that's the danger. Because I've heard people say, well, Alex Jones called this out, called that out. When I go back and look at what he said, he would say things like the elites are committing crimes. First of all, he didn't define elites, and then he didn't define the crimes. So yeah, sooner or later you're going to find out that people in power are committing crimes. But I mean, if I were to come on this stream and make a prediction, plumbers are committing crimes, guess what? Sooner or later you're going to find some plumbers committing crimes. Or if I were to say plumbers are committing crimes against children, sooner or later you're going to find plumbers committing crimes against children. That doesn't mean every plumber. And my, prediction is even less vague than Alex Jones. Alex Jones would just talk about the elites, but never define who they are or what they are, which meant you could put anybody into that category, right? To me, Joe Rogan is an elite. To me, Alex Jones is an elite. He's, got a massive social media following. He was massively rich, massively successful. Millions of people listen to him every day. He's as much of an elite, if not more of an elite, than, say, CNN. But when he says elites, he's not referring to himself or his buddies. He's referring to other people. It's always the other. It's always the other. Hello, Epic MSD. German metal. I mean, Mr. Dane, if you love it, more power to you. It's not, it's not, it's a preference, right? And It's just not something I ever got into. It's no different than Freemasonry. It is for some people, but not for others. Would I save a puppy's life over a baby? No, I'd save the baby. Because even though I like animals more than people, at the end of the day, I still have a responsibility to my species, not to get speciesist. And yes, I would save the baby over the puppy. I'd be very sad, though. I would not eradicate crocodiles either. Um, Till Indaman with Ramiston. I'll check it out. It's going well, Twisted. How are you? Um, the judgment against Alex was unfair. I mean, I am no Alex Jones fan. Part of it is because he speaks a lot of nonsense about Freemasonry. At least from what I've seen, he also speaks a lot of nonsense about a lot of different things. So I think he's made the world. I'm speaking for myself personally, not for Freemasonry. I think he's made the world a much worse place. And I'm incredibly saddened that he had the audience he did, but it is what it is, right? All I can do is, if you're opposed to him, is try to create an audience yourself that is comparable or bigger, which takes time and effort and all the rest of it, and you see what you can do. I'm glad you're living life, Twisted. I hope it's a good life, and I hope that you are doing well. Thank you for being here. Well, that does not sound good, Mr. Dane. I mean, I hope they're being safe with it, obviously, but I could imagine a lot of smoke and emissions coming from that, and very hot as well. I mean, every now and then it's my plan to talk about Freemasons and music, because there is some interesting history of that. Like, not a big Ramstein fan. I'm not a big fan of that type of music. It's not my cup of tea. Um, I hope he's certified. If they're using enough fire to burn down the city of Toronto, then I definitely hope they're certified. Basti, there is Freemasonry in China, specifically in Hong Kong, and in Macau. Whatever you say. I mean, I don't know if that's the best approach. First of all, I think it's sad that we now are at a point where teachers have to be potentially armed. I think that shows a failure in society. Um, and I mean, how well trained do we expect them to be, right? That they're actually expecting them to be trained in how to handle a firearm in case of a school shooting. Thank you for the thumbs up, Twisted. Um, I don't know if that's the case. Maybe. Um, I would, I'd be very wary to say that. I mean, I don't know if pilots are armed right now or not. I'm not aware if they've been armed, but it doesn't seem like. I mean, thank heavens and knock on wood, there's been no further 9/11s, and knock on wood, I hope there never is. Thank you, Real J Dog. And how's it going? I hope you're doing well. And thank you once again, Twisted, for the thumbs up. I hope everybody is having a good day. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, let me know. And as always, we'll start with the actual discussion in about an hour, give or take. Well, sorry, in about 60 minutes from the start of this stream, so in about 15 to 20 minutes from now. Whatever you say. I mean, this is obviously a political question. I highly question that, though, is what I'll say. I think it's a lot. The idea that we can expect there always to be armed citizens around schools and such. First of all, I think it's putting a lot. I mean, I don't know. I think the fact that we're not asking why it is that it's so easy to access guns at this point, that anybody with mental health problems can get access to them and then use them. I think we need to ask some questions about that. Twisted, that's just a lot of research, a lot of studying. This topic is going to be really cool. We're going to be talking about a 16th century manuscript very soon. So, lentil soup is very good, Mayo and Oreos. It's very healthy for you, at least so I'm told. So, I mean, whatever you say, I think it's simply a little less complicated than that. I think there's a lot of stressed out, mentally ill people in a country with a lot of guns, and the more guns you have, the more crime you're going to have, right? It's just by definition. If you have zero guns in a country, you will have zero gun crime. If you have a lot of guns, you're going to have more gun crime. It just kind of is what it is. I'm not going to do that now, Mr. Dane, because I'm busy, but I'll do it after. Well, the law yeah, it can't, I mean, if you're calling 911, it's going to take time for 911 to get where they need to be, right? So yeah, of course. But by the same token, it seems to me that historically we were able to get away with not needing, with not having to worry about mass shootings. I mean, I don't know. Was it a big deal in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s? Were these things happening, or is there something different? Part of what's different is the guns that are available are now much more prevalent, much more saturated, and much easier to gain access to, right? If there's 10 million guns in a community, then even if John Smith doesn't have the ability to buy one, it's much easier for him to steal one. It's much easier for him to borrow one, whatever it might be, right? And also, the nature of weaponry is so much stronger now, or so much more capable of harming people, right? You can get millions and millions of, or not millions, but you can get, so many more rounds out so much more quickly than you could otherwise. It's not like back in the day with the musket, or even, I would suppose, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, where, to my understanding, it was the amount of rounds you could fire in a short period of time was much less, at least in my understanding of it. So it's a combination of saturation of guns, mental health crisis, and technology that makes guns much more deadly to far more people. I just got a big nose. Odin. The thing is, I am so handsome that if I did not have a big nose, I would not leave any women for the rest of you. So, well, they can't own guns, but they can still get them if there's enough guns in circulation. I mean, if you live in a country where, again, let's imagine there are zero guns, then somebody with mental illness, or somebody with an involuntary hospitalization or convicted of a felony is just not going to be able to access them, period. If you live in a community where it's saturated with guns, and I believe they're at the point right now where it's basically one gun per person in the United States. Not saying every person has a gun. I'm saying some people have 20, 30, 40 guns. A lot of people have one gun. I think we're at the point where it's about one gun is in the public or in circulation for every person. It's a lot easier to steal them. It's a lot easier for them to get lost. I think a lot of crimes right now, a lot of gun violence, to my understanding, is actually the guns are being acquired legally and then being lost or stolen or sold illegally, right? So I may purchase a gun legally. As far as the stats go, it's a legal gun purchase, and then I may sell the gun illegally after the fact. Which happens, I think, fairly frequently, if I understand the statistics correctly. So yeah, I guess that's what I'd say about that. I mean, I'm not a gun person, I'm not a 2A person. Keep in mind, that's a political question. We within Freemasonry are allowed to discuss politics. I think the bigger point I would make when we're talking about crime and this issue with guns is, if we want to see, as we should, a reduction in crime, a reduction in violence, then We can talk about gun control. I have my views on that. We can talk about mental health supports. I have my views on that. But I also think absolutely 100% what we need to focus on is civic engagement. The more people we have in civic spaces, whether it be um, Freemasonry, the Elks, the Moose, uh, it could be church groups, Knights of Columbus, whatever it might be, the more people we have involved in those things, the less crime we are going to see. That's what all the statistics show. Sports clubs. So even if you don't agree with me on gun control, which I think, most guns should be banned, which you can disagree. Even if you don't agree with me on mental health supports, I think we need to spend way more money on mental health supports. Hopefully we can all agree that we need a civic engagement renaissance without question. Um, yes, let's mow the lawn together. People need to be nice to each other. The best way to be nice to each other is to be part of civic groups where you stop othering people. It's hard, it's easy to be mean to the stranger. It's hard to be nice to your brother. Sorry, I got that mess. It's easy to be mean to a stranger. It's easy to be nice to a brother. Even if you don't like your brother, you'll be nice to him because he's your brother and you have a relationship with him. You might not like everybody in your family, but you still love them, right? Welcome, Captain Blackbird in London. More people die of car crashes. Well, everything's a trade-off in life, American redneck. I think for better or worse, um, cars have become so integrated into society that to um, get rid of cars and vehicles would ultimately cause more harm than good. It just is what it is. Some people would say they're willing to accept a higher level of gun deaths in a country because they feel that guns have been significantly integrated. It caused more harm to get rid of them. I don't believe it. I've never believed that. I don't think every gun should be banned, obviously, but I think more guns should be banned. I also think there should be mandatory training, and I think the training should be every couple years. I think, honestly, it's interesting you bring that up, um, American redneck, because I've always thought guns should be treated like cars, right? So, in the same way you need to be licensed to drive, I think you should be licensed to own a firearm. And depending on the nature of the firearm, the more stringent the license should be, in the same way with vehicles. So, for example, if you're driving a car, it's one type of license. But if you upgrade to driving an 18-wheeler, you need a more specialized license. In the same way, if you own a gun, if it's a gun that is, let's say, a handgun, that's one type of license. If you upgrade to, let's say, an automatic weapon, and let's say an AR, which I know AR doesn't stand for automatic. AR stands for, I used to know it, I can't think of what it is now. The point is, if you upgrade to a weapon that either has a greater capacity for bullets or a greater capacity to shoot more bullets in a shorter period of time, you should have to get a different, more advanced license, and you should have to renew that license every few years. If I have to get my license renewed every couple of years, you should have to do the same thing with firearms. Seems to make sense to me. Only simple. Be careful everywhere, including with street magicians in London. Um, Well, I mean, the bigger question is, first of all, is the mental illness known? A lot of people have mental illnesses that are not diagnosed and not disclosed. And how would you know? What is the difference between being sad and being depressed in a medical term, right? Um, and again, it's one of those things where it's easy to say, but I know plenty of people who have taken their lives, have hurt themselves, you would never thought they would have, and they probably never thought they would have. And very often they do so after a particularly bad day when an opportunity presents itself. Having a firearm in the house means the opportunity presents itself. All I can say is I was in London. I loved London. I was not robbed myself. It sucks though that you were robbed. Simple. So I'm very sorry to hear that. Just be careful when you're traveling. That's all you can do. Um, and Robert, I mean, I think mental health needs to be supported across the board in Louisiana and all around the world. Also, Freemasonry absolutely does that and absolutely supports um, Freemasonry absolutely supports mental health. All the evidence shows that being part of a club or group like Freemasonry results in better physical health and better mental health. Um, Twisted at it happens to a lot of people. So I'm sorry that happened to you. I mean, in my experience, if I recall correctly, I have to look up the stats again. Um, you know, deaths by gun violence in the States, the majority of them, I think, are self-inflicted. Um, right? I mean, like everything else, what if they don't have a garage, right? Car is a weapon is one of those things where it's relatively easy to take with you and use, whether you're in an apartment, whether, if you're in an apartment on the ground floor or in a house or wherever it is, it's a little bit easier to use, I should say, at least in my experience. So that does concern me. Hello, John Michael. That's true. And everything's a balance, right? We have prescriptions for pills. Not everybody can get any type of pill that they want. Um, there are prescriptions, and there's a reason for that, right? Um, there's there's always a million different ways. And I think nowadays, I could be mistaken, I think nowadays many garages, it's a requirement to have a carbon monoxide reader in there to deal with that. I could be wrong. I don't have a garage. The point is, there's always a possibility at different ways, but we want to limit those ways as much as possible. Good. Did you get, Balba, did you get the coin? I mailed it out to you once again. I mailed it out to you on, what day was it? I should double check the date I mailed it out. Hello, Spirit of Justice. Nice. Enjoy Red Lodge tomorrow. Let me see if I can find the date that I mailed it. Juggernaut, as in the Marvel character? I'll take it. Well, I didn't get it returned to me, at least yet. I got to check my mail slot. I'm just going to go to your place at this point. Let's see. July 20th, I mailed it. So send me an email with your letter, with your address again. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. I'm going to put it on here. Or just come to a coffee club. I mean, I should get it returned to me then, but I have an extra one as well. Well, Niles, I'm glad you didn't. Um, it's 4:04. Well, thank you for being awake. And Spirit, look forward to Red Lodge. I'm assuming you're referring to York Rite or Scottish Rite, right? Blue Lodge is craft. Red Lodge is the appendant bodies. Um, I did get some sun. That is true. Crazy country. I mean, again, keep in mind, I'm not American. And Kurz, I would highly question that study that shows more guns equals safer. I think more guns are probably safer if there is an external threat that everybody is focused on, right? So if you're being invaded by a foreign army and you give the entire population guns, you're probably going to have a very safe population because all of them are going to be focused on the invading country. Once that country stops invading, then I have some questions as to what happens. Also, what's to stop you if you're in community A and everybody has a gun? The obvious question is what's to stop you from just robbing and stealing from community B? And if your answer is we'll give everybody in community B a gun, Now you're running into this problem of, do you just give everybody in every community a gun? Is that really a safe society to live in? Jesus Christ loves you. Hello, Josh. There are many Freemasons who are Christians who would agree with you. Freedom, hello. How's it going? Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. T Twisted, I'm going to treat your statement as serious before putting you in potentially a timeout. Drink lots of water and talk to a doctor. Because that literally can be deadly if you are not keeping yourself hydrated, electrolytes, and talking to a doctor. So get yourself checked. It's really important. I've had food poisoning 3 times and it sucks. Niles, talk to a doctor. Take medication if prescribed. Find a support system. Find things you enjoy and stick with that, whether it be Freemasonry or anything else. Hello, Inya Williams Moore. How's it going? Thank you for being here. Freedom, Josh, Inya, please hit like and subscribe. York, that's right. Red Lodge is York. Spirit, that's awesome. I hope you enjoy it. Cockatiels are great. I hope you enjoy your bird. Thank you for being here. I hope you're having a good day. As always, if you're new, hit like and hit subscribe. But I hope everybody is doing well. Well, you've been here before, right, Cockatiels? I think I've seen you on the stream before. Um, it was good. It was a lot of fun. Um, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I've got another trip coming soon. I'm going to Chicago this weekend, which is going to be a blast. I can't wait. Going to be seeing some friends, volunteering somewhere, helping some guys out. Well, mostly just seeing some friends, to be honest. There's a barbecue I'm going to go to. That should be a lot of fun. And just looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a blast. All right, we are about an hour in, 60 minutes. So James, hit the subscribe button. It does. I love Chicago architecture. It has at least a couple of really incredible Masonic buildings. Um, Jefferson and then Montrose. And then on top of that, it's got, some absolutely incredible buildings just around it. Like it's got the Masonic building in Skokie, in Glenview, in South Chicago. Oh, I'm missing a bunch, but Joliet, if I recall correctly. All right, let's hear the friendly opposition. Let's talk about the origins of Freemasonry as well, or let's more specifically talk about the origin of stonemasonry or the advancements of and within stonemasonry. As you guys know, yesterday and a couple of days ago, the oldest lodge or temple I've attended, would probably be United Grand Lodge of England, which dates to 1717. In North America, Philadelphia, Zion. The oldest lodge here in Windsor here in Essex County, is Thistle Lodge, which dates to the late 1700s, I think 1790 something. I could be mistaken. Do not help me hide a body. If they ever ask you to hide a body, call the police. So as you guys know, I have been discussing for the last couple of days the UNESCO World Heritage Convention, particularly the UNESCO World Heritage List, which lists sites of outstanding universal value. They can be cultural or they can be natural sites, and it is a global list. And if you are a site, or if a site is on the UNESCO World Heritage Convention list, what it means is it is privy to and expected to be preserved and protected by the country and the government or the country in which the site is located. Canada has 22 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, which it has pledged to protect and preserve. Sadly, none of those are Masonic. Hopefully, we can get that changed one day. I mean, that's traditional, but that's not literal, John, right? There is one Masonic lodge referenced in the UNESCO World Heritage Convention that is located in Fiji in a port town, which makes sense. It does not, Eliza, which is a good thing for me. However, stonemasonry, which is from whence Freemasonry derived or came, is referenced especially in one UNESCO World Heritage List site, the Renaissance Monumental Ensemble of Úbeda and Baeza, which is located in Spain. While I was reviewing this site, which is an example of, amongst other things, the living tradition of stonemasonry in the Spanish Renaissance of the 16th century, there is reference to a particular work, a particular 16th century work, entitled in the original Spanish, Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, or translated into English, Book of Stone Cutting Designs. It is a compendium of stone masonry in Europe, of stone masonry designs and practices and techniques in Europe, published in 1646, and had an incredible influence on Latin American architecture, and particular Latin American stonemasonry. It is considered one of the most important works ever as it relates to stonemasonry, the art of stonemasonry. It was, in fact, never meant to be published for the general public. It was always meant to be kept private and passed down from stonemason to stonemason, as a way to preserve trade secrets and as a way to preserve their ability to get work and charge meaningful rates for their work, which I think is a really cool thing to keep in mind when people talk about why is Freemasonry so dedicated to secrecy. In part, it's because we evolved from stonemasonry, and maintaining the secrets of stonemasonry was a way for people to actually maintain their livelihood and support themselves and their families. Well, I mean, stonemasonry has been around for a lot longer. I always put the origins of Freemasonry at 1634. Some would say 1601. The old charges go back to 1390 with the Halliwell manuscript or the Regius poem, which I have talked about on this stream. Now, technically, this work, the Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, Book of Stone Cutting Designs, it's not considered one of the old charges within Freemasonry, which are kind of the foundation of Freemasonry's, the old charge of Freemasonry, which is the foundation of Freemasonry's kind of structure and rituals, but it nonetheless represents an incredibly important bridge between operative masonry, stone masonry, or professional masonry, and speculative masonry, or Freemasonry, or social club Freemasonry. It does transition, and this work, again, Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, Book of Stone Cutting Designs, is absolutely a representation of that transition, and probably one of the most important representations of that transition. Again, in the Spanish Renaissance in particular. I'm going to talk first about the author, and then I want to talk about the work itself. Now, keep in mind, there has never been a fully translated Spanish to English version of this work. There are translated snippets that I've been able to read. I'm able to use Google Translate to translate a lot of the work, but it's not perhaps as perfect a translation as I'd like. And I do not speak Spanish. So just um, keep in mind that I'm doing my best with a translated version. And I just noticed the translation switched for some reason. I went back to Spanish. Give me 1 second. Here it is. So first, the author of this work. Again, in English, you can translate it as Book of Stone Cutting Designs, or Book of Traces of Stone Cuts, published in 1646 in Spanish in Spain during the Spanish Renaissance. Written by Alonso I'm again, forgive me for pronouncing this incorrectly, Alonso de Vandelvira y Luna, or y Una. Born into a noble family, this is from Historia Hispanica. Born into a noble family with a comfortable income, he was the eldest of the 7 children of architect Andrés de Vandelvira, who introduced the Renaissance style to Jan and his wife Luisa de Luna. He was born in Úbeda in the first week of February 1544, where his father was immersed in the completion of the funerary church of El Salvador for Francisco de los Cobos, secretary to Charles V. As was customary, Alonso de Vandelvira, like several of his brothers later, followed in his father's professional footsteps, learning the art of stereotomy, another word for stonemasonry, which was passed down through his family based on personal experience of work, Euclidean arithmetic and geometry, and the reading of Italian treatises, with their new classicist syntax, such as Vitruvius and the 2 volumes of Cirilio, owned by the family, demonstrating an unusual mathematical culture and design ability. His training was completed between 1561 and 1565 alongside the prestigious Mannerist architect Hernan Ruiz II, master builder of the Seville Cathedral, to work as a stonemason and molder in the works of the Corboden directed, such as the Giralda Bell Tower. In 1565, at the age of 21, he returned to his father to oversee the construction of the Jan Cathedral. Within the next 5 years, he became independent. He married a woman from a noble family. This allowed him to pursue a political career in the town council as a councilman and mayor, and to acquire a significant estate of livestock and land. There, in a prominent house near the parish church of San Pedro, he had 4 children. The disappointment caused by his father's will, in which he named Alonso as a successor to the cathedral work, led him to begin writing a theoretical treatise on stone cutting in the form of a primer that synthesized all the stonemasonry and construction knowledge of his family. Written with great clarity, it consisted of a set of plans or drawings for the layouts of pendentives, squinches, centering, arches, vaults, staircases, rationally codified with a specific explanation of the work for each ashlar. The term ashlar should be recognized. The writing of this treatise led him to leave Savoy with his family, moving back to Seville in 1588, seeking fame as a draftsman that had eluded him in his homeland. There he would triumph, being appointed foreman of the Merchants Exchange Building in November 1589, a stone masonry project commissioned by the king and designed by Philip II's architect Juan de Herrera. He held that position under the royal architect until the latter's death in 1600. He was appointed master builder, note the term master, of Lonja, a post he held until 1609. In this role, he completed the entire first floor of what is now the General Archive of the Indies, and began the second, designing the facade facing the cathedral and the Alcazar. This contact with the court architects encouraged him to leave the manuscript with Juan de Valencia for publication, but his writing remained in the hands of one of those masters it passed through. He tried to have it returned in 1596. It was copied at court and ultimately plagiarized. In his second period as an independent professional, he was contracted to create the portal of the church at the Convent of Santa Maria, the now lost portals of the Church of the Covenant of the Incarnation, and of the Jesuit College of San Herman e Gildo. In 1597, he possibly intervened in the design of the facade of the royal court and in the completion of its courtyard. In the late Mannerist style, he built with his own hands the side portal of the aforementioned Santa Isabel, and he intervened in the joint design with the master builder of the Cathedral of Seville, Miguel de Zumarraga. And he was the royal engineer of many other cathedrals and magnificent stoneworks throughout Renaissance Spain and Europe. Desperate in Seville, where construction of the exchange had stalled, his desire for professional advancement led him to attempt another leap, moving further west and entering the service of Alonso Perez de Guzman, the seventh Duke of the Medina Sidonia, the man who lost the Spanish Armada. Guzman hired him to carry out several projects in Cadiz, the seat of his lordship, and other dependent towns such as Úbeda. He also secured for him the royal office he sought, Master Builder of the fortifications of Cadiz. In Sanlúcar in 1604, he built the double over-shaped bell tower of the parish church of Lao, and in the following year he designed the convent of La Merced de Úbeda. Between 1607 and 1610, he finished a church, and the following 4 years he designed and built the sanctuary of Our Lady of Charity, which was chosen as a pantheon by the Duke, where he witnessed, along with relatives, miraculous events, continued working for several dukes, for whom he designed and directed the Church of the Merced Covenant between 1616 and 1620. In Cadiz, apart from the numerous works of military architecture for the defense of the city and others of an urban nature, he was appointed Master Builder of Cadiz. He designed the Covenant Church of Santa Maria and possibly the Royal Chapel of El Populo. The death of this author of the most important treatise on stone masonry of the Spanish Renaissance, again in Spanish, Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, in English translated as Book of Traces of Stone Cuts. His death remains a mystery. Very likely it took place in Cadiz between 1626 and 1627. You saw within that brief biography of this author, Alonso de Vandelvira y Luna, this author of the most important book of stonemasonry in the Spanish Renaissance, as well as a very important master stonemason and master builder within the Spanish Renaissance and within Spain. We see many works and many words related to Freemasonry, ashlars, master builders, geometry, stonemasonry, Euclidean arithmetic. All of which, if you are a stonemason or if you are a Freemason, should be recognized as being incredibly important to you and incredibly important to our art. Jesuits is a Catholic order, John Michael, if I recall correctly. So no, not necessarily. You can be a Jesuit and a Freemason. I don't see why not. But if I recall correctly, Jesuit is a Catholic order. Yeah, it's a Catholic male religious order. So there's separate orders and separate organizations. So again, now let's talk about the work in particular. We've talked about the author, his value to the Spanish Renaissance, his value as a builder, and his knowledge as a builder. Let's talk about his work. Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, Book of Traces of Stone Cuts, published in 1646, written probably in the late 1500s, 1588 to, let's say, 1600. This was at a time when we saw a great bridge between what was operative Freemasonry and the beginnings of speculative Masonry, which would kind of be completed in, let's say, 1634 with the admission of the first speculative Masons into lodge in Scotland. Right, so the 16th century manuscript Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra by Spanish architect Alonso de Vandelvira serves as a direct bridge between operative stonemasonry and speculative Freemasonry. It was compiled strictly as a technical manual for master builders. Again, note the term master. Its core principles closely mirror Masonic allegory, geometry, and ritual or rituals. The idea of mastering stereotomy, which is another word for stonemasonry, or particularly cutting three-dimensional stone blocks into architectural structures, designs, and shapes. For Freemasons, that is the historical basis on which we base the lessons of the rough ashlar into the perfect ashlar. Within the work, the author relies entirely on constructive geometry over written theory. Again, the importance of geometry within Freemasonry, the letter G, the idea that mathematical principles manifest in the physical world we see this in our architectural buildings. The art of the Montea. The book teaches La Montea the method of drafting full-scale architectural plans directly onto the workshop floor or tracing board. That is the exact operative origin of the Masonic tracing board. Direct lineage of craft knowledge. Alonso compiled the book based on trade secrets, passed down by his father, the legendary Renaissance master Andrés de Vandelvira. This directly mirrors the Masonic system of transferring craft secrets from father to son or master to apprentice. Architectural secrets of the cathedral builders. The manual codifies the exact structural techniques used to build complex vaults, like those of the Lyon Cathedral. This idea of the literal look of secret knowledge held by medieval and Renaissance stonemason guilds, which were protected through modes of recognition, like we have within Freemasonry, and which are passed down from the master to the apprentice. Opinion on Putin, not a fan. The symbolism of the keystone. A massive portion of the text is dedicated to calculating the angles of keystones for complex arches. This provides the technical context for specifically the Royal Arch degree, where the keystone is central to ritual. We see within this work the explicit use of the square and compasses. Every design template or traça in the manuscript is generated using a straight edge, a square, and a compass, which underscores the tools as not just being moral symbols, but as instruments capable of unlocking structural truths and moral truths. Once again, Freemasonry ultimately is the extension of stonemasonry into a social setting. There's a reason our working tools include things like squares, compasses, straight edges. I actually posted about that a couple days ago. The legacy of the Master Mason. Vandelvira, the author, differentiates between the common laborer and the designer, the tracista or the trachista. This distinction is the bedrock of the transition from operative masonry to speculative masonry, where members act as designers of their own character. Ritualized progression of skill. The manual is structured as a didactic or teaching sequence progressing from basic flat stone cutting to highly complex spherical vaults. This curriculum is heavily parallels the progression from entered apprentice to fellowcraft or master mason, and protection of guild esotericism, written between 1575 and 1591. This knowledge was meant to remain with elite or master builders, not elite politicians, but elite tradesmen. It was not published during Vandelvira's life. It was published in 1646. Its preservation, strictly through restricted handwritten copies, reflects the Masonic tradition of guarding secrets from the uninitiated. Again, it's like the family recipe. In the ancient world, with master builders such as Vandelvira, Alonso de Vandelvira, it was about maintaining trade secrets. Within Freemasonry, it's about maintaining the bonds of brotherhood. Hello, Lucid Concepts. And Freemasonry is not a cult, Oakwood, so I'm very sorry to disappoint. I've given you the bullet points of Alonso de Vandelvira, the author of the work, the Book of Stonecutting Designs. He was born in Úbeda, Spain in 1544. He was trained under his master builder father. He was educated in private architectural libraries. He was formed and served in elite builder circles, transitioned to imperial civic engineering, and he had he was very much dedicated to protection of trade secrets. I know I've been outside a lot, Jeremy. He wrote the very first comprehensive book in Europe entirely dedicated to the complex planning of 3D stone structures, otherwise known as stonemasonry. He died as a master of the works. His careful documentation of his father's knowledge and of the knowledge of, again, stonemasonry or the cutting of stone to 3D shapes is the sole reason that the Renaissance Guild secrets survived into modern history. I love them, and I think they're a great example of stonemasonry. Again, to give a very brief outline as to why this work is so important to Freemasons, Alonso de Vandelvira was an eminent Spanish Renaissance architect who broke centuries of guild silence by authoring Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, Europe's first comprehensive technical manual on stereotomy, the precise art of cutting three-dimensional stone. For Freemasons, this highly restricted 16th century manuscript provides a vital historical bridge between operative stonemasonry and speculative philosophy. By codifying the actual geometry, drafting techniques, and architectural secrets used by the elite cathedral builders, Vandelvira's work offers literal material context to modern Masonic allegories, transforming working tools like squares, compasses, straight edges, tracing boards from moral symbols back into the supreme instruments of universal creation, aka universal outstanding value, such as what you see at the Spanish Renaissance World Heritage Site of Úbeda and Baeza, the Renaissance monumental ensembles therein, located in Spain. Did Freemasons make the Grand Canyon? No. What do you mean, Bartholomew? I think I'm doing okay. I'm just focused right now on reviewing this work. Oops. I will say, though, what's going on here? The Grand Canyon, I believe, is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site, just not a cultural site, a natural site. I do need more water, though. Um, Lucid, welcome. Yes. Why do you ask, Bear? Am I looking okay? Am I sounding okay? Getting a lot of water is very important. When it comes to the specifics of geometry, I think it's very important that we keep in mind Freemasons use, well, I'm definitely very, like, I got a nice tan rocking out. So long as I'm sounding okay and you can hear me well, that's the most important thing. I got a nice sunburn though. In the Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, the author codifies advanced geometric principles that allowed Renaissance master builders to manipulate space, structural load, and three-dimensional stone. Rather than using algebraic formulas, his entire system relies entirely on constructive, practical geometry. The core geometric principles utilized throughout the Masonic manuscript include descriptive geometry and planar orthogonal projection. He maps complex three-dimensional architectural elements onto two-dimensional surface using orthogonal projections. Every architectural piece is analyzed using two integrated views: the planta, horizontal base plane, and alzado, vertical elevation. The development of surfaces, intersection of solid geometric bodies, direct graphic rectification of arches, geometric synthesis through La Montia. Here it is. So we talked about the connection between the Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, the book of stonecutting designs, and Freemasonry, and how it acts as a bridge between between operative masonry and Freemasonry. Just going to pull this up in just 1 second. Can I spell Renaissance? That's the question. It's also important to keep in mind that the work itself not only creates a bridge between operative masonry and speculative masonry, it also creates a bridge between the Spanish Renaissance and Freemasonry, right? The Libro de Traças de Cortes acts as a critical physical and intellectual bridge between the Spanish Renaissance and Freemasonry. It serves as a link in the evolution of the craft. And again, it was published at a time when you were seeing the very first speculative Freemasons literally take their very first steps into craft masonry or into craft lodges, or where you're seeing the welcoming and the installation, or the what's a good word to use? It's when you start to see the integration of speculative Freemasonry into operative lodges. I don't know Yo Maple except through here. I have a cat, Mr. Dane. The Spanish Renaissance, and so this was one of the most important works ever about stonemasonry. It's also one of the most important works ever about the Spanish Renaissance, right? The Spanish Renaissance moved away from medieval rule of thumb. Architects like Vandelvira used classical humanism to elevate stone cutting into pure mathematical science based on Vitruvian ideals. This exact intellectual shift mirrors the transition from operative masonry to speculative masonry. His intense focus on the square and compasses as the ultimate tools to unlock universal truth directly preconfigures Masonic veneration of, or Masonic, I don't like the term veneration. I don't think we as Freemasons venerate anything. I would say a better term to use is the Masonic appreciation for geometry, aka the letter G, as a moral or philosophical guide. the Montea as the literal origin of the tracing board. Vandelvira, the author's treatise, is famous for codifying la Montea, the practice of drawing a full-scale, highly complex geometric layouts onto a flat workshop floor to guide stonecutters. In early operative lodges, the master mason drew all these same geometric designs on the floor to direct workmen. As lodges became speculative, the physical drawing floor elevated into the modern Masonic tracing board, changing from a literal blueprint space into a symbolic map for self-improvement. If I could be a dog, I'd want to be a wolf. The transformation of the ashlar, the Renaissance shift, right, was the shift from was a shift to stereotomy, complex geometry required to carve irregular three-dimensional stones so they fit together perfectly without mortar. We not only see this actually in Spanish architecture during the Spanish Renaissance, we also see the carving of irregular three-dimensional stones so they can fit together without mortar. We actually see that in South American stonemasonry. If I recall correctly, we see that in stonemasonry in Peru, where we see stones fitted together without the use of mortar. I believe it was in Peru. Let me double check. I could be getting that wrong. Where do we see stones fit together without mortar in South America? I think it was Peru. Let me double check that though. Stones fitting together tightly without mortar are primarily seen in Inca architecture across the Andean region of South America, most famously at Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, and Ollantaytambo, all in Peru. So I was right. It's all in Peru. So it's very fascinating that you see, again, one of these shifts in Spanish architecture and the Spanish Renaissance was a no longer needing to use mortar, because they could shape the stones so well and with such talent, shape the ashlars, if you will, that mortar stopped being necessary. And in Machu Picchu, that dates to, let me double check. I'm trying to get the exact date. I used to know it. Machu Picchu being built. Machu Picchu was built during the height of the Inca Empire in the 15th century, with modern scientific evidence showing construction began around 1420. So there you go. So again, we see one of the fascinating things about this work and about its connection to stonemasonry and Freemasonry is the shift to carving stones in three dimensions so that they fit together perfectly without mortar. Vandelvira's manuscript, in terms of Masonic Bridge, is a literal step-by-step textbook on how to transform a raw, quarried rock into a geometrically perfect load-bearing stone. This is the exact, precise operational reality behind the core Masonic allegory of moving from the rough ashlar to the perfect ashlar, or the more perfect ashlar. I am a Freemason, suburban symbolism, been one for 20 years, and secularized guild secrets and esotericism. Written between 1575 and 1591, the manuscript broke traditional guild silence by writing these methods down, yet it was deliberately withheld from public print to keep the knowledge within an elite, restricted circle of master builders. The Masonic Bridge, this culture of protecting highly valuable geometric and architectural secrets, restricted handwritten copies, and family lineages, matches the structural framework of Masonic lodge system. It bridges the secretive, protective nature of the Renaissance master builders with the traditional oaths and privacy and secrecy maintained by modern Freemasons. Um, so what you see in this work, I'm going to give the title and the author once again. The author's name is Alonso de Vandelvira y Luna. The work is called the Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, translated Book of Stone Cutting Designs, is a book written and providing a bridge between operative Freemasonry and speculative Freemasonry, between operative stonemasonry, speculative Freemasonry, and the Spanish Renaissance, and between the Spanish Renaissance and modern Freemasonry. I'm actually going to read the start of the book, the introduction of the book. Keep in mind, there is no fully English translation. I'm relying on Google Translate for this. Awesome, Lucid. I hope you're finding this discussion interesting. We need to remember that we as Freemasons are a social continuation of stonemasonry, and we need to respect our stone Masonic roots, which is why I'm discussing this particular work and this particular author. I need to hold on just 1 second, though, because I need to go to the washroom like crazy. All this water. Give me 2 moments. No, there is no sex magic or sex rituals within Freemasonry. If there was, I would not join. I would join other organizations for that. Everybody enjoy my friend. I'll be back in a moment because I gotta go to the washroom. And I'm back. People like this guy more than me. Fire, I mean, if I'm the top of the class, then please send me a super chat. I would be much obliged. Um, but Freemasonry itself does not involve any of that. It's pretty, sorry. Gas is about $4 nationally once again. I mean, I've said a million times, you cannot separate the condition of your country from the condition of Freemasonry within that country. Economic conditions matter. The cost of gas matters. It matters to Freemasonry in a lot of different ways. I've been talking about this a lot in the past. It's why I talk about politics sometimes, because politics is going to affect Freemasonry. As things get more expensive, Freemasons have to compete with that and have to figure out, do they want to allocate money to paying lodge dues or to paying for gas, for example. I mean, Robert, everything from the outside looking in, people, if they don't understand it, they may find it culty, quote unquote. It just kind of is what it is. It's unfortunate that those things happen. But I always say, though, is everybody would want themselves to get the benefit of the doubt. You should be willing to give that to other people as well, right? So I would not like the idea of people looking at Freemasonry and drawing nonsense conclusions. In the same token, I don't want to do that to other people. I'm going to give benefit of the doubt when I can and not assume malice or anything to that extent, right? I just don't think it's helpful. So I've been talking about this work, which is incredibly important to Freemasonry. Give me 1 second. Let me just deal with something here quickly. Okay. So I am using, for this, again, I'm using Google Translate. Keep that in mind. The Book of Traces of Stone Cuts by Alonso de Vandelvira. A author by the name of Maria Aranda Alonso in 2022 republished it with explainer notes. It was republished in its original Spanish, not yet in English. I would love to see it republished in English at some point. The paperback edition is 75 euros. I don't know what that comes to in Canadian, but not cheap. But you can find it online through editorial.ujaen.es. You can find the original or the Spanish version, the Spanish publication, and you can find at least the first sample of the work. Well, never, because we're not evil gone. So what can I say? But I did want to read, again, this is English translation, but I think reading some of this work is actually going to be really helpful. It helps us, again, understand our operative roots and the operative place from whence we came. So this is chapter 1 from the work. I'm going to give you the title one more time. In English, The Book of Traces of Stone Cuts by Alonso de Vandelvira, published in 1646, most likely written in, let's say, 1588. Stone cutting, or masonry, is the art of finding the most suitable division of the masonry, or of the stone, and shaping the stone pieces that must later fit together in the construction of vaults, arches, staircases, and squanches. This is only possible with a correct layout of the masonry plan, defined by Benito as the part of the architecture that teaches the cutting of the ashlars to form a structure, and as the drawing made of a vault at full size on a wall or floor to take the measurements and shapes of its different parts. To carry out this process, practical geometry strategies are essential, seeking to provide material solutions to all kinds of problems using relatively simple means. In fact, geometry, land measurement, emerged as a practical science to solve, using rods and ropes, the problem of the disappearance of land parcels along the banks of the Nile River. The connection between geometry and construction is therefore very ancient, and because for centuries the dissemination of these techniques and experiences occurred mainly orally, it is very difficult to assess its early development. However, from its beginnings, the variety of architectural forms is so broad. At the same time, this is going to be one of those things where it's hard because you kind of have to keep going and getting the updated translation. So hold on just 1 second. I try to be chill. I don't always succeed, but that's for another day. How's it going, Ninja? What? Please hit like and subscribe. I'd be much obliged. Dun, dun, dun. So once again, we'll read that last paragraph. The connection between geometry and construction is therefore very ancient, and because for centuries the dissemination of these techniques and experiences occurred mainly orally, it is very difficult to assess its early development. However, from its beginnings, the variety of architectural forms is so broad. At the same time, so widespread, yet characterized by recurring models, suggesting that manuscript compilations on the subject must surely have existed. Evidence of this includes the 13th century sketchbook of Villard de Oncourt, or the depiction of Master Miguel carving while consulting a book, found on the portal of the Church of the Saints Cornelius in Cyprian in Rivera de Santo Lano. I know I'm pronouncing these places terribly. It was definitely from the 16th century on discipline began to be systemized theoretically. The writing of treatises aimed to lend this practice a more scientific and rational character. Consequently, around the 18th century, it began to be called stereotomy, a neologism derived from the Greek stereos and tome, meaning solid and cut. The Frenchman Jean-Marie Pérouse de Montclos was the first researcher to compile a historical overview of this science in his book, L'Architecture à la Française. Considering it to have originated in their country. I would say Egypt is more likely. It certainly appears that given the current state of knowledge, Spain and France were the two countries that contributed most, both practically and theoretically, to the development of stone construction. An excellent scholarly contribution in this regard is Rabasa's study, published in 2003. Philibert Delorme was the first architect to publish a text dedicated to the art of stone cutting. Specifically, this consisted of 2 chapters included in the general volume on construction published in 1567. They present certain layouts that offer a glimpse into the traditional curriculum every apprentice stonemason had to master to complete their training. Mastery of these techniques enabled the execution of precise cuts and consequently the creation of high quality, stable, and beautiful architecture while also establishing a reputation as a skilled architect. With this section, the French architect initiated a new scientific direction within architectural treatise literature. The content diverged from that of earlier renowned treatises, such as those by Vitruvius, Alberti, or Serlio, which focused on conveying the proportions and measurements of classical architecture. It can therefore be said that this is a construction discipline whose foundations do not lie in Italian theory, I mean, I think it would be a hodgepodge is the better way to view it. Oops. Let's see if I can get this. Controversy arises regarding the functionality of the stereotomic, again, solid cut elements. Violette de Luc emphatically declared that stereotomy gave rise to useless devices featuring mediocre superficial forms that complicated architecture. There's always going to be debates. Admittedly, many of the resulting volumetric forms stem from the architect's formal whims, though this does not necessarily mean the element ceases to be functional. A clear example is the squinch at Chateau d'Anet, designed by L. Orme and later publicized in his treatise, which supports a cabinet in the corner of the courtyard intended for visits by Henry II. Others took a more positive view of this formal value of stone stereotomic volumes, classifying them as feats of construction, though he was also critical at times. We are still, by the way, in the introduction of this work by Maria Ariane Alonso, again providing a context for the Book of Traces of Stone Cuts when it was published, and by whom. But let me see. Just want to try something. I'm going to go to part 2 for just 1 second, or chapter 1, part 2. What do we got here? Alonso, this is his history. But as this author says, where is it? The value of his work lies primarily in his interpretation of Italian elements through the use of materials and techniques typical of Castile, blended with French and Muslim influences. This blend reflects the historical circumstances of the Iberian Peninsula, the contacts Andrés established during his professional career, and his interest in the emerging scientific publications circulating within intellectual circles of the time. His life, his work, and their subsequent impact have been extensively studied by numerous researchers. So, published circa 1575 to 1591. Let's see if we can get this here. The preceding remarks have sought to briefly highlight the interest shown by many research in stereotomy, once again solid cut, the art of shaping stone in 3 dimensions, and in the work and professional careers of the Vandelvira family. However, the focus of the study is the literature specifically dedicated to Alonso de Vandelvira's Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedra, or to other aspects directly related to it. Meaning, if you are a Freemason, especially if you're a Freemason in Spain, please make sure to check out the Book of Traces of Stone by Alonso de Vandelvira, Context of Manual Stonemasonry and Constructed Geometry in 16th and 17th century Spain, as written by Maria Aranda Alonso. It is an in-depth, extensive research and study of not just that work in general, but the sequence that stonemasons and draftsmen had to know in order to master the art of stone carving and cutting. In addition to the necessary contextualization of the treatise and the copies made in the 17th century, this work assesses and compares the circumstances that may have influenced the architect when attempting to disseminate his text. Furthermore, the study encompasses all of the designs included in the manuscript considering their current state of research, the origin of the architectural forms developed, and the underlying geometry of each one. I would love to see this work one day translated into English. Right now it's still in Spanish, which does create challenges of translation. Whatever you say brings up a very good point. Do you do drag? Say no, I do not. Lucian, what is the ideal age to join Freemasonry? There is no ideal age to join Freemasonry, Lucius. Rather, it is whatever age you are ready to join. I mean, you need to be at least 21 years of age in Ontario to join Freemasonry. However, you need to keep in mind that some people choose to join when they're in their 50s or their 60s, other when they're very, in their early 20s. It really depends on each individual Mason and what they works best for them. I think sometimes the worst thing you can do, though, is rush and join before you're ready. That's one of the reasons why we never try to rush people into joining, right? Or we shouldn't be. If you're a Freemason or if you're an applicant and you feel like you're being rushed to join or rushed to advance, you're doing something wrong. The goal needs to be making sure that you are dedicated and enjoying the process of being a Freemason, and enjoying the entire process, including the application process. So I hope you guys enjoyed that discussion. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was something different, unique. I don't want to ever forget about our operative roots and how important they are, or the manuscripts and documents that are so vital and important to what it means to be a Freemason. Like, obviously, we talk a lot about the speculative roots of Freemasonry. We've talked about the Regius poem, the Cook manuscript, the Anderson constitutions. This is a very important book as well, and work as well, or treatise or manuscript. Once again, the author is Alonso de Vandelvira. The work is in English, Book of Stone Cutting Designs, or the Book of Traces of Stone Cuts. The Spanish title originally, Libro de Traças de Cortes de Piedras, published most likely around 1588, between 1571 and the 1590s, by a master stonemason, a master builder who passed away around 1626. Not a fan. I mean, I'm sad he's dead, obviously. It's a shame when it's always going to be a tragedy when when a wife loses a husband, when kids lose a father, but not a fan personally. Again, I think in the same way we discussed Jordan Peterson yesterday, in the same way we discussed others, the Andrew Tates of the world, the biggest danger is, as Freemasonry declines in value and declines in relevance, the consequences of that is people like Andrew Tate, Charlie Kirk, Jordan Peterson become more popular, for better or worse. I would say for worse. But that's up to us to do better. Thank you again, everybody, for joining. Please, once again, hit like, hit subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. No, I'm not a fan of conspiracy and cynicism and everybody's out to get me and the government is evil. I hate that stuff. I think it does nothing but create a worse environment. You can agree with the government or disagree with the government. That's fine and that's different. But the constant cynicism about I hated that stuff. And also going around and debating college students who have no life experience and are easily quote unquote owned. That stuff drives me crazy. Every clip I've seen of him was nothing but cynicism and the government's out to get me and all the rest of it. I hate that stuff. I don't think it's helpful, you know? Um, so yeah, not a fan. I put him in the same category as the Jordan Petersons, as the Candace Owens, as the Tucker Carlsons, as the rest of them. It's just cynicism pretending it's genuine criticism of the government when it's not them, right? When Trump's in charge, it's a whole different can of tuna. But when it's Biden or Obama, it's, you know, he traded on cynicism and kind of bitterness and all the rest of it. Stuff drove me crazy. So not a fan. Obviously, though, I don't care who you are. If you have a wife, you have, even if you don't, but especially if you have a wife, if you have kids, you have a family, to see them be lost is, you know, you never want to see somebody be widowed. You never want to see whatever, you know, children lose their father. So that's incredibly, incredibly sad. Knowledge versus wisdom. I mean, knowledge without wisdom can be blinding. The most famous Mason in all time, apparently, even though he's not that important, but Albert Pike, he did make that point. He said, look, you can be incredibly knowledgeable, but if that knowledge lacks wisdom, ultimately you are going to be, you're not going to have a successful Masonic career, like, or successful life. Knowledge without wisdom is actually can be dangerous. You need to have a certain amount of wisdom. So when you gather knowledge, you know how to properly apply it. He was always pandering towards people. It's just he panders to the people who give him the most money. That's why he's so dangerous, right? I mean, back when the best, you know, back when the finances and the money came from calling out the elites, that's what he did. But anybody with, you know, a certain amount of common sense should have recognized that sooner or later those elites are going to change to the Jews, to the Masons, to the whatever it is, right? Like that's how it works. That's why it's so dangerous. I mean, the point is this is always what it was. This is always who he was. This is always what Candace Owens was. This is always what the movement was. And now that it's more financially beneficial for him to step away from it, that's what he's doing. But doesn't change the fact that he's, you know, it doesn't change what he always was and what the movement always was. It just kind of, we're dealing with the consequences of it now, for better or worse. And maybe, you know, I think there's going to be a lot of challenges coming out of this, the other side, a lot of things that need to be fixed. But I mean, I think if I recall correctly, right now in the States, measles is at like a 35-year high or something, if I recall correctly. Measles, United States, current levels. So measles cases in the US are at a 35-year high. That's according to Times Magazine. That's good. That doesn't just affect us today. All the medical systems that need to deal with them and help them, that affects people for years to come. We're going to have to do a lot of digging out, but we can do it. And hopefully Freemasonry and civic institutions in general, the Elks, the Moose, hopefully they can all help us dig out of these challenging times. Charlie Kirk, maybe. I would question that because all I've ever seen him debate are college students, but he was good at it, at least. I would say that. I just think he also took on not the best. He also took on not the best opponents, or at least not the most capable opponents, which probably made him appear, in my opinion, better than he actually was. But then again, you know, what do I know? We are just going to hang out now, back to just answering questions, chatting, talking to people. Any thoughts you guys have, anything you want to share, let me know. Positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. He was not. At least there's no evidence that he was. I've never seen any evidence that he was. Um, Again, I saw one interview where somebody asked him, what do you think of the Freemasons? And he just responded, um, he kept an open mind. So, nope, that Charlie Kirk was a Freemason. Yeah, I agree. It's a nope. He was not a Freemason. At least again, to my knowledge, not seen any evidence that he was. I definitely don't want to be a sorcerer, and I don't think I'm a genius. I'm just a guy who likes talking on YouTube and is trying to make a living at it. Lindsey Graham was not a Mason, at least not to my knowledge. I mean, I've never seen any evidence that he was. Um, that is true. I mean, being a Mason should not make a difference as to how you feel about somebody. You can be a Mason and be not a good person. You can be a Mason and be a great person, or you can be a Mason and be loved or hated, right? It's not. That's not the issue, if that makes sense. What matters should be, are you a good person? Do you make the world a better place? Oh, Lex with the jokes. I mean, I suppose he did pass away today. I mean, not today, but I think his funeral is today, so I will try to be respectful of him and his family in this, I'm sure, challenging time. Thank you. I'll take it. I'm trying to have a bit nicer shirts, not with so many stains and all the rest of it, um, for whatever it's worth. But thank you for being here. I was not a fan of him either, but since it's his day of his funeral service, we'll just, we'll refrain from speaking ill of the day, ill of the dead, at least for a day. Um, Nobody's better off dead, but I would agree. I'm not a big fan. I don't think criminalization is helpful. No, I don't know what a gin is. I think of gin, I think of um, when I think of the gin, I think of Wishmaster. So we do not. Hello, Dennis Holtzman. How's it going? Thank you for being here. I do not have any overalls. I don't need overalls. But I've never worn any, I don't think. Please hit like and subscribe if you're new to the stream. Human hippo, I'll take it, master. Most people say I look ugly, but hippos, I'm sure, are wonderful, wonderful creatures. Actually, it's supposedly incredibly tough and like scary creatures. So I would not want to get into a fight with a hippo, that's for sure. How's it going? Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral? Please let me know. I hope everybody is doing well as always. Don't forget, I stream today and at 1 a.m. as well. Well, if I was a hippopotamus, I would be terrifying. I can assure you of that. I would be absolutely terrifying. Nick from India, thank you for being here. I hope you like and subscribe. I would love to visit India. I got a lot of really good friends who are Indian, a lot of really great professional wrestlers from India as well. I think it'd be so cool to visit there. I think it'd be awesome. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry. Why not? There are people like anywhere else, right? I'm sure there's good parts and bad parts, but I think it'd be really fun to check it out, especially for the really cool Masonic history and Masonic heritage. Well, trade unions and civic clubs are different organizations. The extent to which a trade unions are struggling, I can't really speak to. But civic institutions are definitely struggling quite a bit, unfortunately. That happens in Canada too, whatever you say. That happens in Canada as well. That happens in Canada too, whatever you say. That happens in Canada too. I don't know. I think you're judging him a bit harsh. I've never been there, but I've got enough friends from there. All seem like really good people, all seem like really good dudes. So, and I mean, great professional wrestlers, great friends. They work hard. They're hygienic. I don't know. I just think it's where you're at, like everything else in life, right? And what you're looking for. If you're looking for the positives, you'll see the positives. If you're looking for the negatives, you'll see the negatives. At least that's been my experience. That's true for social media. That's true for life. Um, we are going to just hang out, wait to see what jumps on. We'll be back on at 1 a.m. as well. Not a fan of Nick Fuentes, as I'm sure you could guess, right? I'm not a fan of those other guys. Not a fan of Nick Fuentes. But again, I've given this example before, right? The thing you need to keep in mind is it very much is in a lot of ways, the rise of people like Nick Fuentes is ultimately um, a indictment of Freemasonry. The fact that Freemasonry has declined in relevance means, amongst other things, um, young men are looking for other places to go to feel welcome, to feel included, to get mental health support and just emotional support. And they find that on social media, they find that online, they find that through anger and vitriol and blaming Jewish people and blaming minorities, etc., etc. It's incredibly dangerous for society that Nick Fuentes is so popular, but it's also incredibly, almost certainly the case that it would happen when civic engagement declines as much as it has. We're just going to keep hanging out, wait to see who joins, jump in the chat, say hello. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. No more talking points. We're just chatting, hanging out. As I said again, I'll be back on stream at 1 a.m. Hope you enjoyed my discussion of a very important treatise, a very important work that bridged the gap between operative stonemasonry and speculative Freemasonry. He's some kid who just spews a lot of anti-Semitic, racist kind of garbage online. So it's better if you don't know who he is, to be honest. We're just going to keep hanging out. Wait to see who jumps on to say hello. Hit like, hit subscribe, super chat, comment, Patreon, all that stuff. Believe me, it helps out very much, and I would be grateful. We'll give this another, let's say 5-10 minutes, then I'll be ending this stream. I'll be back on tonight at 1 a.m. I don't think anybody's planning to make anybody more racist, but I do think sometimes racism can be used to distract from your problems. WWE Mania, I'm sure it is. I'd really love to visit. Like I said, it's on my list. WWE Mania. I hope you'll hit the like button. I hope you'll hit the subscribe button. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. But I'd love to visit India. Any places you suggest going? There's really cool history of Freemasonry in India as well, which I don't think people talk about enough. Uttarakhand? I don't know what that is. Uttarakhand. Okay. It's a state in India. It's 5,000. It's very hard to fly to. Oh my gosh. Looks like it'd be expensive to fly there, but maybe I could fly to like New Delhi and then take a bus. Nice. Whatever you say, celebrate the little victories. Believe me, you need to do that. You need to celebrate the little victories. So I'm glad you got an extra chicken wing. Yeah, I like Popeye's chicken. I think it's really good. We are going to give it a couple more minutes. Wait to see who jumps on to say hello. Please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry? We'll be back on at 1 a.m. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Whatever you say, Douglas, let me know if you found value in the discussion. If there's anything you want to talk about, please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. Good, I'm glad. Anything you guys want me to talk about? One thing I always ask, especially for my members, if there's something you want me to talk about on a stream at some point, let me know. Like, what is it that you'd want to hear me discuss? More on the history of operative masonry, more on the history of Freemasonry, more discussions on ways that lodges can help themselves grow. My favorite weapon, I have no favorite weapon, but I'll go with a Tyler's sword to keep it Masonic. What is your favorite weapon? No, not an AK-47, that's for sure. That would be quite overkill to protect a Masonic lodge, I think, for the record. Every Freemason will have a different view, right? Freemasonry is not a religion. As a general rule, some will say Freemasons have to have some type of belief in a soul or mortality, but I mean, I would say what that nature is depends very much on like who you like. So if you're Christian, you believe in the Christian version. If you're Muslim, the Muslim version. Whatever kind of version of religion you are is kind of what your afterlife will be, at least understood. All right, I think we will end this stream. But like I said, I'll be back on tonight at 1 a.m. Thank you all for being here. I will talk to you guys all soon. Super chat, comment, all that jazz. It helps out big time, believe me. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you all for being here. Have a good rest of your day.